I actually never called myself an artist until I was, I think it was my fifth or sixth solo exhibition. Not my first, not my second. These could be flukes. Oh, you got an exhibition, that's nice. Oh, you got another one. When you're going into your fifth, your sixth, then you're starting to tell yourself, okay, maybe I am serious. Maybe I am valid. Maybe all of these nights of not sleeping because of the imposter syndrome are just that, imposter syndrome. Maybe what I do is art. It took quite a while. I was in my mid 30s by then. And again, I won my first painting competition when I was 9. I did my first solo exhibition when I was 26 in Milan. I have done 18 exhibitions around the world, 11 of them solo. I have works in private collection in so many countries I stopped even counting. And still, I find it hard to refer to myself as an artist. When I do it, it is just part of the long title of artist, musician, poet, photographer, etc., 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 etc. I don't see myself as a full time artist unless you can say that everything I do is art, that everything I touch is art, that all of my creative endeavors are art, which is true on a certain level. Writing a book is art, recording an album is art. But when I talk about art, when normal people talk about art, what we have in mind is the visual part of the art world. Paintings, sculptures, projections, installations, something that we can see. This is what we call art. And in this part, I always had problems because I come from the digital world. My first exhibitions were, of course, non digital because they were many, many years ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So there was no such thing as a computer that can do huge prints in the press of a button. When I grew up, I grew into the digital world and it became part of my arsenal, part of my toolbox. For me, the computer is just a very, very smart pencil. That is all, and that is how I treat it. But in the beginning, there was a lot of resistance to digital art because it is not real art. Maybe it's graphic design, maybe it's illustration, but it's not real art. Real art is oil colors, it's watercolors, what normal people call art. I had the advantage that I was working inside the advertising community. I was never part of the advertising world. I was doing jobs for the advertising world because I am not completely morally bankrupt and a huge a hole, which is what you need to be in order to be in the advertising world. But I worked with the advertising world, which opened a whole world of suppliers, like the first printers of large scale canvases. We are talking about almost 20 years ago, so that was very rare at the time. My first solo exhibition was indeed large scale canvases printed with images that I have created from my paintings, from my photographs, from my inner world, and printed on the canvas. It was in Italy where everything is a little bit old fashioned and traditional, and I'm saying it in the best possible way. But it was in Italy where everything is a bit more traditional and old fashioned, and people didn't react all that well to printed images. The younger crowd was starting to be a little bit more receptive because they looked at this and they said, okay, that is something new. The older crowd was still, yes, but how long did it take you to make it? It's done on the computer, right? I can't say that I disagree with them. There is a point in what they are talking about. There is a point where the manual work, the long term commitment, the steady but painful process is part of the art. It brings something more to the art. It brings an added value. It brings something more serious. But on the other hand, if you take this leap of faith and say, I can use a tool that is much easier, much faster, without losing the essence of the artwork, without losing what I can get in the long term process. If I can do that, my images are valid. It is art. It is part of me, part of my expression. It doesn't matter how it was laid on the canvas. It doesn't matter in what format it is. The minute that I manage to conserve this energy of creation and all the rewards that come with it, the end result is exactly what I was looking for. And it is exactly art. Later on, as I moved forward and the world moved forward, it was much more acceptable. It was much more acceptable to do these kind of artworks. It was much more acceptable to mix all the medias together. There was no more bias against new media, old media. This is where I flourished. This is where I really found my way of creating artwork. This is where I started to make more complex artwork, using more layered techniques of different images, of different symbolisms, of different compositions. Now, I am lucky that I have this amazing stock of photos that I took in my studios of dancers, of actors, of people, all things that can be used in my artwork. And all of these photos are a bit extreme. The movements are extreme. Everything is a little bit contorted. Everything is a little bit strange. Strange is a very important word. If I have strange ingredients to work with, I can cook something that is extra strange. Actually, one of the reasons that I started being a photographer is that I needed photos for my artwork. I didn't want to use material from other people. I wanted to do everything from A to Z. I wanted to create the brushes with which I will paint my masterpiece. I wanted to grow the horse with a tail that has the hair that will make the brushes that will make my masterpiece. So I started taking pictures so I will have raw material for my artwork. Well, there were many reasons why I started being a real photographer, but that was the basic one. That was the initial idea to become a photographer. I have found during the way that I already think in advance when I create this raw material. I already think of how to make something that can be used in 10 different ways. How can I make something that can meet all the criteria of what I need for my artwork? Something that works well with other pieces of the artwork. Something that works well with older photos that I took. It is all a mix and match of different ingredients in making this cake. And it is exactly that, because it is always about the balance of ingredients. It is always about having the right recipe to get the right image. And the recipe changes every time because you work with different ingredients. You have different raw material and you have to adjust to that. My artwork is always developing and always evolving because I have no idea what will come out of the work process. When I start a new artwork, I don't imagine what I want to do and then do it. I start bringing in pieces and start playing with them like a puzzle. See what fits here, see what fits there. Let's mirror this one. Let's rotate the other one. Oh, wait, that's a nice composition, but let's cut it in half and put the other half on the opposite side in a counterclockwise. Oh, that's interesting. This is how the artwork is built, this is how the artwork is born. I have very little control over it, and that is exactly the way I like it. Because art has a life of its own. I just try to let it find its right way on the canvas or on the print. That is all. I just try to help the artwork find its right place on the wall. One of the things that I like about how I create art and why I create art is the fact that I'm not a big fan of galleries or museums. I think that art should be enjoyed by normal people. Normal people usually don't go to galleries. I don't go to galleries unless it's somebody I know or I really have to. I just don't like the experience. You know, walking into that room, getting that glass of wine, walking around, looking at the pictures for 20 seconds each, having a nice chat with somebody and some small talk, and then, okay, where are we going? Where are we going to eat? Where are we going for where are we going from here? Let's go have dinner. I don't like museums. I do like museums because they have a better service for the public. They actually care a little bit more about what they are showing and what is the educational value of what they are showing. Obviously, I try to avoid contemporary art museums because they are just boring. But I real museums, I highly encourage everybody to put visiting the museum as part of their monthly chore, as part of their monthly plan, as part of their everyday life, because you do get an enormous value, because you do get an enormous benefit, because you do get an enormous benefit out of being exposed to what the museums have to offer. The art that I create is for houses, for homes, for people to take home and put in their living room so they can enjoy it for the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, so it can be part of their life, part of their family. I know that pictures that I grew up with that were hanging on my parents' walls were an extremely important part of my education, of my upbringing, of my environment. When I see somebody happily take my picture to his home, knowing that he will benefit from this picture, that he will get some joy out of it, some value out of it, I feel that I have done something. The creation of the art piece, that is an amazing thing in itself. I mean, I am addicted to creation as most creative people. But the fact that somebody chose this image to be part of his life, part of his family, part of his existence, that is the best compliment that I could ever have. I find it much more rewarding than having my pictures in some famous gallery, maybe, or maybe some famous museum. Okay, if you put my pictures in the MoMA, I will not object too much. But in the end of the day, my artwork, and I'm not saying it to look down on it or anything, my artwork is for living rooms, is for dining rooms, is for your study. If you want to put my photographs in your toilet, even that works for me. As long as you have decided that you want me and my artwork as part of your life, I really can't see a bigger reward than that.